Hey everybody, this is the Anyway Whatever podcast, and today's episode is another movie review, this time with our friend Bobby Dixon, who, if you are familiar with the show, you know Bobby's on every now and again. We always enjoy having him, and today we talked about a movie that me and him both absolutely love, the Sandler produced Grandma's Boy from 2006, and we had a really good time recording this episode because there's so many funny things in the movie, and we just got to shoot the shit about a movie that we both really like a lot. I worked in the game industry for a long time, and so this one, touched close to home with a lot of the humor. And I was happy Bobby wanted to come on and do that with me. It was a good suggestion on his part, and we had a really good time. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, comment, and like all of those things. If you are listening on the podcast version, you can leave a 5-star review or a subscription on any of the podcasting channels that you get your content from. It all goes a long way to helping me keep this show going, and I really want to keep doing this. It's super fun. I get to talk to my friends and have a good time. So you can find us on all the social medias, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, all at Anyway Whatever Podcast. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the episode. Feel free to comment and let us know what you think. And yeah, thanks. Enjoy. Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today we are doing a movie review with our friend Bobby Dixon. Bobby, thank you for coming back.
What's up, Mike? Happy to be here.
I have to, if this podcast is really anything, I want it to be an honest representation of what my life is like, and so I'm going to become right out up front. And me and Bobby recorded this movie review last week, and I had technical problems, and so we have to come back and do it again. And I'm praying that we don't have the same damn problem that we did last week. So I appreciate Bobby coming back and doing this again, taking the time to put up with my not knowing shit ass.
Dude, for sure. Like, I'll come back at any time. I'll review this movie over and over again. It doesn't matter,
All right. Today, when I asked for a movie to do, Bobby gave me Grandma's Boy, which is a 2006 movie produced by Adam Sandler's Happy Madison, and it is directed by Nick Goosen. And for me, this was an easy one. It's like one of my favorite comedy movies of the last 20 years, but by a pretty large stretch. I laugh a lot every time I see it. I die every time. It's so funny.
Even the title alone, like, you just say it, and it's like the movie is ingrained in that phrase,
Right, dude, totally. This one did not get good reviews from the the rest of the world. It got like a 16% or something on Rotten Tomatoes, which is I was surprised when I read that nobody likes it.
I guess like, do a bunch of stoners not go on to Rotten Tomatoes and review stuff, or like, I don't get it, man. It's like a good, just senseless comedy.
It really is, and one of the reasons why it ties into my life, and one of the reasons why I immediately liked it, is it's about a guy who works in the video game industry, and so it all takes place within the game industry. Which, if you listen to this show, you know that I was in the game industry for 15 years as an art director and animation director, and so this was the comedy. They did a good job of taking things that were pretty close to how things work in the industry, and then, like, blowing them up into exaggerated proportions. Like Nick Swardson is a character in this. I'll run down real quick the list of people in the movie. Alex Covert plays Alec. Alan Covert plays Alex, who's the main character that is trying to find his way through the game industry. Linda Cardellini plays like the boss, the studio runner. Nick Swardson And then you got the grandmas, Doris Roberts, Shirley Jones, Shirley Knight, Peter Dante, who plays the weed dealer, he's an all-time great character for me. Joel Moore as JP, Kevin Nealon is the guy who owns the game company, Simon Cheezel, and then a very young first role, barely any speaking parts, Jonah Hill was in it. That's a pretty impressive cast.
High-pitched Jonah Hill, yeah, like he was old enough to have gone through puberty, but like he was still high-pitched for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they did that on purpose to make his character even more nerdy, because he plays like a real serious game tester, like nerd kid. One of the things that they got really right is in the video game industry, the testing department is like where you start. Almost always everybody starts. I should stop and go back a little bit. It used to be where you started. Now you can go to college and get a degree in game design or game animation or game coding specific to the game industry and start at a job where you're in the production team, like right out of school. But traditionally it was always you started out as a tester, and then if you had some skills, they'd move you out of that group. And so this movie was about Alan Colbert's character. Alex is like a 36-year-old guy who's too old to still be in the test department. And the hilarity ensues.
Right. So let me ask you this. Like, so you were in this industry, like you said, like how on point are these characters? I mean, I know they're exaggerated because it's a movie, but two, were there any of them that you could relate to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Every company I ever worked at had some analog of one of the guys that they had, characters they had in the movie. Like the main guy, Alex. I try not to give too many spoilers, but this is like a 15-year-old movie, and so you should have seen it by now if you were gonna. And if not, it's just such a dumb comedy that nothing I tell you is gonna ruin it for you.
Right.
So
we're not ruining the plot of Grandma's Boy.
The plot is video game guy smokes a lot of weed. That's really the entire movie. So Alex is like a 36-year-old guy who's in the testing department. But on the side, he's creating his own game, like at home. That is completely unrealistic. In all the years that I was in the game industry, I never met a person who could code and do art at a senior level. At a senior level, like coders are coders, and game artists are game artists. And there's some people who can go back and forth. I worked with a guy for years named John, who shout out to John, and he was almost as good at both things, which was kind of crazy. So the fact that he could make like a AAA looking fighting game by himself in his house that was definitely not realistic at all. But everybody else, like the Kevin Nealon plays the owner of the game company, and he's like a super hippy dippy like meditation guy. And I've absolutely worked at game companies that had that dude who owned it for sure.
Nice.
And then Linda Cardellini plays like the producer, like studio manager. And I did work for a woman who was in that exact same position of trying to wrangle a bunch of video game nerds. Shout out to Holly Herzl. And she did a very admirable job, because we were all a bunch of dickheads, and it was like fucking herding cats. You're like, really?
Yeah. Well, and that's the same with Linda's character. Like, she played that perfect. I mean, besides just being drop dead gorgeous, but like you felt for her as the character, because you're like every cringeworthy moment, like you just saw her handle it. Right.
And that was very true to life, to my experience with working with Holly, is like, like the guys who have no social skill, like in their awkward attempts at, seduction. Yeah, I know Holly had to put up with that shit. So I get it. Yeah. And Linda Cardellini played that character perfectly. And maybe that was one of the other reasons when I first saw it, I was like, oh, well, at least they got something going on here that is, realistic to my experience in the industry. And then Nick Swardson steals the show in this movie for sure. And he's like, he's the guy in the testing department who he's the master of every single game, and nobody can ever beat him at anything. And every game company has that dude who's just like, you just can never beat him at every game. He's just like a total savant, And there's a scene with him in Dance Dance Revolution that's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in any movie ever.
So many great one-liners from him. Probably out of all the characters, he had the best one-liners. But just nothing but joke after joke in there that still to this day, there's certain friends of mine when we talk, I'm like, yo, what's up, shit lips? It's like, there's no way, if you didn't watch this, like, I don't know, like how offended you'd be. But
right, dude, totally. Cause like that is like everybody's just busting each other's chops the entire time. One of the other main characters is played by Joel Moore, his character JP, and I won't spoil his running joke. Because if you go watch this, and I really want you to go watch this, it's worth it's worth me not talking about when he starts doing it. It's like a way he talks, and if you don't laugh at that, I don't even know if we could be friends. So,
yeah.
But he's really good because he like plays like this kind of like trench coat mafia like Matrix type. He thinks he's like in the Matrix, and he's the coder genius who like creates all these games for this company. And those dudes exist, man. Those dudes for real exist in the game industry for sure. So he was on point, definitely. So yeah, they did a good job. I mean, they did a really good job. And then they just took those characters and like expanded. It's like, okay, if you've got this like Matrixy, genius computer guy, what if we like really make him weird and they give him like this weird affectation? It's funny. It's now that we're talking about this, it's bringing me back that same company that I worked at with the female producer, studio manager. We had a kid who was like 18 years old, right out of high school, could like code AAA level stuff into the games, and he was a really nice guy. His name is Tom Catola, and shout out Tom Catola. And so I totally, again, like that's like a real thing. And it's funny because Tom was totally into techno music too, just like JP. But he wasn't a Matrix guy. He was more of a Junko Pants guy. Shout out Junko jeans.
Dude, that was like a hardcore techno too. Like I'm a house electronic head as it goes, and I was like, yo, this is fucking deep, man. This is deep techno.
Dude, totally. As far as like the way that they handled like the making of games, they didn't get it right there. And it was just to serve the story so that it was content that didn't need to be there to make the movie any more funny than it was. My favorite character for sure, if it's not Swardson, it's Dante, played by Peter Dante. He's like the weed dealer, and he, it's a full California stereotype with the dude voice, and he plays it so well. And the main character, Alex, always at his house buying weed, and every time he goes there, he's got some new exotic animal or some new foreign dude who's like there to manage whatever animal he's got. And this movie is vaguely racist in a lot of those ways, but it's not like derogatory racist. It's just stereotypically racist. And we talked about this before, and I'm not a person who, I'm happy that we live in a time when, that stuff is less acceptable, because I just think people just need to be treated fairly. All people need to be treated fairly. And I won't get into my personal politics too much, but it doesn't diminish things like this movie or Blazing Saddles that were out when it was a time you could say and do those things. And I think that those movies still hold up, and I don't think you have to not like them because they use words that you don't like. But yeah, so it was weird watching it after a while and being like, ooh, I don't think they could make that joke about, the African witch doctor who lives with Dante. Right. I don't think you could pull that character off at all at this point in time. But I don't think that's bad. And I think that we'll always have Grandma's Boy to do that for us. And, you know, I don't know. They make as much fun of vegans as they do anybody else. So I don't know. I'm not going to get too mad, I guess.
Nobody was off limits, you know,
right.
But that wasn't the point of the movie either.
Right. For sure. They make fun of like pretty much everybody across the board. So one of the things about the movie, one of the greatest scenes in the movie is all the team from the game company, except for the weird guy, JP. They all end up at, to go back a little bit, character Alex gets kicked out of his apartment by no fault of his own. And there's a little cameo by Rob Schneider in that. That is vaguely racist. And,
yes.
And it might be overtly racist, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
But I guess because he's
I'd describe it that way.
I mean, I guess because he's a minority, he can kind of get away with it. If he was just like a straight white dude, I'm not sure he'd have been able to get away with playing that character. But, you know, so Alex gets kicked out of his house and he has to go live with his grandmother and her roommates. And that's why this movie's called Grandma's Boy, because he lives with his grandmother. And there's a scene where all of his coworkers are out like having a team bonding night out on the town. And those absolutely happen in the game industry. You get these team building experiences, and they're usually pretty fun. So they all end up back at Grandma's house partying, and it's one of the better, you know, party scenes from any movie I can remember.
Right. Yeah. Like I can only think of maybe one other, and that's like Dazed and Confused. You know, the party scenes in Dazed and Confused.
Yeah. I'd say 16 Candles party scene was up there too. It was in the top 3 for sure.
So you're saying that the party scene at Grandma's house, that's your favorite scene from the whole movie?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. There's some Dante scenes with the monkey that are really funny. Dante has a monkey, and every time he has a way of saying monkey that even to this very day, if I ever see a monkey, I say it in that way. I'm like monkey, like just because it makes me laugh in my daily life.
I would say like the scenes leading up to the party, but after the team dinner, that's probably my favorite scene right there.
Yeah, is that where they're at like at like a burger place at?
Yes, in the parking lot of the burger place, and then JP is just the best.
Is that when he's in his? They show him in his apartment. JP.
No, this is JP like having to use the restroom. He's like, I need to go. We need to go to your grandma's house so I can use the restroom.
Right. No, wait. Was that JP?
Yes. Not JP. Nick's character.
Nick Swardson. Yeah.
Yes.
That is really funny. Yeah. That is really funny. That's really funny stuff. And one of the things that I've learned over the years about Happy Madison, and in particular with Nick Swardson, was at some point they realized that they would write a script and they'd give him lines to do, and he would do them, and then he would ask for a chance to do it again with like in a different way. And then they just started leaving the camera rolling on him whenever he was on one of these Happy Madison films, and he would just keep delivering the same piece of film over and over with different funnier lines, and he'd keep ramping it up every time he'd do it. And then they just go in and snatch out whichever one they found is the funniest
the best
one.
ad-lib.
And I would bet money this is where they figured out that was where he was going to earn that company a shitload of money by being funny.
Right. And like you see a lot of films nowadays take that approach too, like with their comedy.
Yeah. I
think and we're not just talking like a blooper reel, you know. This is like actual like on film ad libs where they do the same scene over and over again, just changing up the lines.
Right. Yes. And yeah, if there's a master of that, it's got to be Nick Swardson, because one of the things about him is that he could play a different weird nerd every single time, and he still comes through as himself, but he still also comes through as the character he's playing, and that's like a skill as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, for sure.
And one of the people who gets a little cameo in this is David Spade. And I'm a huge David Spade fan, and I think a lot of people really only know Spade from SNL and from those Farley movies, and they don't realize that David Spade is a killer stand-up comic. And when we were doing this before and talking, I asked you if you'd ever seen his special, Take the Hit, and if anybody listening, you can find it on YouTube, and I think you might be able to find it on Netflix or Prime. I think it's streaming somewhere. It's one of the best hour-long stand-up specials I've ever seen by any comic. He absolutely destroys. It's so funny. And so he gets a little part in this, and he gets razzed because he's like the waiter at the vegan food place they're trying to have dinner at, which they leave and then go to Tommy Burger. And they go to the original Tommy Burger on Beverly in Los Angeles. And I think that was like a nice homage to Tommy Burger.
Nice.
Have you ever been to Tommy's when you've been out? Oh no, yeah. The next time you come to LA, that is on the list. Tommy's has nerd content. Tommy's is credited with A, coming up with the term chili size, and 2, coming up with the chili burger.
Wow. That's definitely on the list now. So,
right.
That's like I'll book a flight just to go there,
Yeah, Bobby and his wife Lisa, we're good friends. Me and my wife and Bobby and Lisa, and whenever Bobby and Lisa come out, we always find some place to go that they can't get where they're from. Like one time they came out, we went to Philippe, which is the place that invented the French dip sandwich, and it's near downtown Los Angeles, and so we took them there, and that was a successful mission for sure.
That was amazing.
That place is super good.
Now, speaking of all these places, these like name drops and stuff, you were mentioning like Sandler kind of like raised all the money himself for this film, or all his films, or this one particular.
Yeah, what happened is, and whenever I make declarative statements on this show, I could totally be wrong. This is just how I heard how I heard it goes with Sandler. At some point, he was having a hard time finding people to give him money to make these movies because they're just kind of silly, and I think that the studio system figured that they were going to run out of steam at some point. Hold on one second. So he started having issues with like pitching. He'd have to go in and pitch a movie, and then he figured out that every movie in Hollywood now, every single movie, whether you know it or not, is heavily product placement. There's like heavy product placement. If somebody's wearing sunglasses, some company either paid or got paid to have those sunglasses in the movie or the TV show or the music video. It's absolutely crazy. And so Sandler just figured out, well, what if I just raise my whole budget by making these movies a commercial for a particular brand? It's genius, and I have nothing but respect for Adam Sandler for doing it this way. Is he just figured out he didn't need the studio system to give him money, and he could raise the money himself and make any goddamn movie he wanted. And so when you see a movie like Grandma's Boy, there's like these scenes, and they're gratuitous, where Jonah Hill and Nick Swardson are standing in the common room at the game company, and they're standing directly in front of a Mountain Dew and Pepsi machine for no reason at all, except for that there's a giant Pepsi machine, and they're holding the Pepsi and a Mountain Dew, and that happens over and over in this movie, and so I can't believe that Tommy's Burger did not give them a little bit of money to be a location in that movie. And, Sandler, I mean, there's like, I think it was, I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry. I think that was just like a Domino's commercial. Like it was just Domino's. It was paid for by Domino's.
Yeah. Well, once you gave me that little nugget, I went back specifically just to rewatch the film and just look for all this product placement. And it's every scene. Every scene there's something, except, and I noticed this, any of the JP scenes where it's just JP, because I guess none of these brands want to be associated with the antagonist, the bad guy, right?
Maybe, but I think if I had to make a guess, they wanted JP and his environments to be super stark and like ultra clean and
very Matrix like his
yeah,
character.
yeah. And so he wouldn't be a person who would have any branding stuff in his environment, either at work or at home. So I guess maybe that's, I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe it was just like, let's keep our brand out of the scenes of people, the guy who's getting made fun of the most.
Right. But man, it got to the point where like I was looking at stuff going, now was that on purpose? Like it just, especially in the office now, like with the testing office, like it just looks like a big party. So you see the documentaries of Pixar offices and things like that, and it's just like your background and my background. It's just every square inch and every square foot is just filled with ephemera and memorabilia and toys, and there was like South Park blow up dolls, and I was like, did Comedy Central, like, did they pay that? Did Sandler put that in there because he knew like maybe Comedy Central would air this film, in the years to come? Like there was computer boxes that were Dell,
The Dell logo is everywhere.
Yeah. You wouldn't just leave those boxes out.
You can't do it. You have to. I've done a little bit of set work and prop work, and when you have like a Toyota on set or a Dell computer on set, you have to mask off the logos. It's called Greeking. So you have to Greek all that stuff out, so that, as otherwise that company can come back to you later and say, why did you put our product without giving us any credit, and vice versa, like. So for sure, if you see a Dell logo in a movie, Dell, it's a Dell ad.
It's in there. It's in there on purpose.
You bet.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Now all that being said, like to me, it doesn't work for me. Like I had to go back there specifically looking for product placement because you brought it up. Now do you think it just only works on a subliminal level, or like if you're already a Mountain Dew fan, it just reinforces your fanboyship of it?
I
don't watch that movie and immediately want a Pepsi. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, Pepsi's disgusting. I don't know why anybody would drink that rather than Coke anyway. Like, I don't know. I mean, I literally don't know why anybody would do that. Shout out to Connie Collinsworth, me and her on the Coke team. Yeah, no, I don't know if it works. I mean, it's hard to say, but I can tell you this, that it is a commercial, and how well do commercials work, period. That's the thing. And in the year 2020, or even in the year 2006, when they made this, the TiVo was a thing, and people don't have to watch commercials that they don't want to anymore, the DVR. And so, I mean, every brand on earth had to figure out how to start getting their products in front of people.
That's true.
Some other way. And this isn't not a negative or positive observation by me, but because of that, you started seeing like product placement in places you would have never seen it before. And the history of broadcast media, going all the way back to the radio days, was the only reason they started making shows was to have content somewhere so they could place ads in it so that people would buy products. It's just part of the American capitalist system. And so, way back when it was 1930s and people listened to stuff on the radio, it's that famous thing from the movie Christmas Story, where, the little kid's sitting there and he's trying to get enough Ovaltine packet things to get the ring, the decoder ring. And so, there is a moment in time when he realizes that he's been suckered into this by Ovaltine rather than it being of any use. And he's like, oh, it's just a cruddy ad. And so it must have been a very, very tense time for the TV networks when the DVR came out and people could fast forward, do commercials, because that's what pays for every single TV show you watch, is an advertisement for Dodge trucks or whatever it is in between. Those commercial breaks literally pay for the show. That's how they make their money. And one of the nice things about things like Netflix and Amazon Prime, although Amazon Prime now starts making me watch commercials, which pisses me off, Because if it's a pay service like HBO or any other pay service, you're going to get shit ad free, which has been nice, but because the subscription pays for the show. But yeah, like weird times for, and that's how come you start seeing, like, if you watch Survivor, all of a sudden there's like, this challenge is brought to you by Doritos. And they did that for a little while, and people freaked the fuck out on Survivor, and they fucking stopped doing it.
Dude, every second of a sporting event is that way.
Yeah.
You
bet. I mean, that's the same thing too. Sports are only about selling advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but speaking of the product placement, and I don't know, I wouldn't call it product placement, but what I do tend to look at now when I'm watching a series or a movie is I look for gig posters, like, as set dressings.
Yeah.
Like, I was stoked whenever one of my posters first made a movie, and I've seen stuff from Connie. You mentioned earlier. Shout out to Connie. I've seen stuff from Connie, DKNG. Like all the gig posters, homies. Like, you'll see something, whether it's a quick blurb on a TV series or it's like in your face on a movie.
Dude, totally. I also always notice that stuff, and the funny thing about that is, as it gets concerned to my career, is the only movie I've ever seen any of my work in is a porn movie. And so somebody sent me a bunch of, they're like, aren't these your posters? And I looked and I was like, holy shit. And it was like an Avenged Sevenfold poster. Like, I was like, fuck me.
Now, did that lead to any sales?
I don't think so. If it did, nobody was admitting that, hey, I was watching this porn and I saw one of your posters in it and I had to track it down. Nobody was copping to that.
Oh, man, that's too good.
Yeah, it's funny.
Let me, those are, offline. I'll be sure to check them out to see your posters.
I wish I saved the link to it. It was like a little moment of glory, I guess.
Dude, mine was in like a pretty big, it was big at the time, certainly. And I didn't know about it until someone actually, like, it was when the Gig Posters website was still up and going. And was like, yo, your poster's in Transformers. And I was like, what? Like, this was the week it came out, right? I was like, I didn't like sign a release or anything. But...
Going back to that. You didn't get no checks, son.
But I was like, yo, where, what? Like, I still don't go see movies. I wait till it's streaming or it's on cable or whatever, for the most part. So I wasn't going to spend money to see Transformers. It's not my thing. But that was the week it came out. Somebody was like, yo, one of your posters is in Transformers.
What poster was it?
It was a A$AP Rock West Coast tour poster. Yeah, done.
I'll see if I can find a screen grab of it and throw that up.
Yeah. I guess Shia, it was in his bedroom.
Oh,
and I guess big A$AP Rock fan, so that's why it's in there. But I guess somebody had downloaded a torrent or something like that and was able to screen capture it for me, like the week it came out. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, that's awesome. Recently, me and my wife went back and rewatched the entire series of The Sopranos because she had never seen it all the way through. I think she'd only seen a few episodes. She was one of those people in the 90s when she was in her 20s that she just didn't even own a TV. So she was unaware of things like The Sopranos. But in the first season, there's both of the kids, Meadow and Junior's. Wait, what was the kid? What was Anthony Jr.? Yeah. Their bedrooms had posters from like these like obscure like death metal and black metal bands, because it was like clearly somebody somewhere just contacted any record label that they could get a hold of, and like we need like posters for bands to put in these kids' rooms. And It was like this band, one of them was this band Ulver, who they've changed a lot since back then, but it was like these Ulver posters, and it's just, that is, in 1999, that was a very obscure band to be having in a major TV show with these two kids who were not metal kids at all.
Yeah, someone that was dressing the set was like, send us what a 14-year-old girl would be listening to, and they were just like, here, have this.
Yeah, that's funny. Like to kind of reel it back into the movie, we're starting to end up doing a whole episode instead of a movie review here. This movie is like it's really funny, and I say this a lot on here. If a comedy movie's job is to make you laugh, sometimes it doesn't matter if it's just terrible and stupid. If you're laughing, it's doing its job, and that's definitely the case with all of these Sandler movies. Like, you're watching a terrible movie, but if you're laughing, then you're not wasting your time as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and it's easily my favorite Sandler flick, and he's not even in it.
Right.
Right.
Just produced by. And here's the thing that I learned about it this last time, because you asked me to watch it to do this. I had no idea Kool Keith did the outro song as Dr. Doom. And I was like, how did I never, ever notice that? And then somewhere inside the movie, someone's wearing a Dr. Doom t-shirt at one point.
That goes back to the product placement too. Like every scene, the main character, he's wearing some type of branded merch,
Yeah, dude, totally. And it's funny because the outro song, I think the Dr. Doom song is called Grandma's Boy. And if you listen to the lyrics, it just sounds like they sat him down in front of the movie and let it roll, and then he just started freestyling, like, and now JP's doing the segue in his apartment, and he's like just like rapping these terrible, like barely holding it together. It made me laugh. Yeah. Kool Keith is one of my favorite rappers. For that reason, is that he's the dude who will, whether he's got a bunch of different personas. If you're not familiar with Kool Keith, he also goes by the name of Dr. Octagon. He goes by Dr. Doom. And so he puts out all these records under these different pseudonyms, and it's always really weird, funny raps. Like he will rhyme weird words you would never expect about weird things you would never expect a rapper to rap about. And I absolutely love Kool Keith because of that.
Yeah. That was a great song to end the roll credits on. And speaking of, like, every Sandler flick that I can think of, I don't know if it's him doing it, if it's, the whole Happy Madison, if they have a staff of people doing this, but their soundtracks are always on point. Like, right. For the most part, they're pretty pop, and approachable, but they do a really good job of picking music for the movie.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they definitely. Overall, like, again, I can't believe this movie didn't get better rating from people on. I mean, it's a Sandler movie. It's funny. I mean, even to the point where, like, I read one reviewer's comments on it, and it was like, even the most stoned Sandler fans are going to have a hard time getting through this movie. And I'm like, what movie did they watch? Because right. I didn't have a problem with it. I don't even smoke weed.
Yeah, it's not like for consideration of an Oscar, Come on.
I mean, none of those are. But as another aside, Sandler does, every now and then he'll do these serious movies like Punch Drunk Love with P.T. Anderson, and then this last year, as I'm sure if you haven't seen it, he did Uncut Gems. Yes. And it's not a comedy movie at all, and he can do it, man. Like, people think of him as just being like the goofy fucking, blah, 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 guy. Right. And, you put him in a movie, and I think he should have won something for Uncut Gems. A lot of things should have been won. Should have won a lot of stuff during award season, because it was a fantastic movie. Another shout out to Connie. Connie, described it as watching an 1.5-hour panic attack.
Yes.
I think that's pretty much all I have with this one. I think I would recommend this movie. It gets like, this is a solid, like 21 out of 22 stars for me, for sure. I'll watch this. If it comes on, I'm not turning the channel. I'm going to watch it all the way through. And I own the unrated version. So, that's how I feel about this movie.
Yeah, go through this. As long as you don't go through here expecting like Oscar-worthy performances or even a plot.
It does have a plot. It's a loose plot.
But it's It's just laughing entertainment. Just
Right.
sit back on the couch.
Right. Be on the lookout for at the party scene when Dante starts talking about the Frankenstein weed, because that makes me die laughing every single time. All right, Bobby, I'm going to let you go. I know you're coming back again to do another movie review here pretty soon. So I'll let you go, and we will talk again very soon.
Right. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, no problem, bud.